What's up, my friend? Welcome back. Welcome
you,
back to the land of the living.
That. Yeah, I'm glad to be back. 2 weeks is long enough for me, and then I start to miss my belongings.
See, you are a material capitalist at heart. I've been saying it, but you won't let me win here.
I'm going to let you win right now. So I'm totally a capitalist, materialist at heart. Yeah, I don't have all this shit for nothing.
You were saying, though, that you're happy to be back with your equipment?
Yeah, I'm happy to do the podcast on the normal equipment. The other setup was a little bit hollow, tinny sounding. So, but it was remote, so we did the best we could, right? So,
well, and I didn't want to interrupt your whale watching.
Yes, my whale watching. We did do a lot of whale watching. There were a lot of whales. We had a lot of good weather. We had some rain, like record rain on Maui. And then after we left Oahu, pretty bad rain there. Lots of dams overtopped. So they got a lot of dams in Hawaii on all the islands, and a lot of them they don't use anymore, and they don't keep them in good repair, and they keep them dry for the most part. Plus, believe it or not, they've been in a drought. So, a lot of these dams had no water in them, but this rain was 12 inches one day. So, and then multiple days of it. So a lot of the dams filled up, even though nobody was trying to fill them up, but they had no good way to release them because they're just out. And once they get full of water, they're dangerous because they're not in good repair. So if the dam breaks in the wrong place, residential communities can be wiped out in a heartbeat. So none of that was, we're 4 stories up the whole time, so it doesn't matter to us. But, as we left, it had rained so hard on Maui the last couple of days that you get this effect. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Travis. They call it chocolate milk. So all around the edge, and in Maui, there's a long stretch between Kaanapali and the airport where you're driving right next to the beach. And beach parks, little beach parks where you just pull off the road on the sand and boom, you're at the beach. And you could see all along there that the water was quite brown because so much rain up in the mountains brings all the dirt down, and they call it chocolate milk. You're not supposed to swim in it.
I would say so.
The sharks, well, not only is there, you get all the stuff from the land that might not be that clean, but the tiger sharks like that environment, right? It's murky.
They like every environment. So, these fuckers are hunting us. I've been saying it for I don't know how long.
Oh, that's right. You wanted to kill all the sharks. That's right.
You can't say that to Hawaiians. I said that to some Hawaiians recently, and they got all mad at me because
kill the sharks.
Yeah,
kill all the sharks. Yeah, well, part of their hana. To be honest with you.
Well, speaking of dams, though, right before we came on, you caught me listening to some dramatic music. I was watching this video on YouTube about this fucking goat or something. I don't even an ibex or an ibex. I don't know. Do you know what that
ibex.
Is? An ibex is like a goat-looking thing. I was watching this video of this goat climbing this dam wall. Literally a dam. It was like made out of old stone. I'm not sure where it is, somewhere in Europe, and he's like scaling this wall, and he slips and he falls. He's like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, but he catches himself, and then he eventually makes his way back up. So
goats are incredible. A few years back, Debbie's niece, Belle, went to Morocco, believe it or not. And while she was in Morocco, she sent us back a picture from Morocco of a tree full of goats. And I'm like, wow, this is the dumbest picture I've ever seen. And I thought it was fake, right? But then come to find out that at least in Morocco, and I don't know where else this happens, the goats climb this tree and eat the fruit. And
was it Christmas time or something? Is this like a Moroccan Christmas tree and they decorate it with goats?
No, it's just a normal tree, and the picture is incredible. I'll try to find it and send it to you sometime. It's when you look at the tree, there's like 20 goats in it. They're on all the branches. They're standing sideways, just eating the fruit or whatever. It's just so silly, and I'm like, okay, that's just not real.
But you have a long history of goats. Did that make you think of food? Did you think of goat tacos when you?
I have a long history of goats.
Don't you?
No. Well, I have, there's the story where where some friends of mine that I used to work with,
they made you eat goat, and you thought it was cow.
No, they made me say that, they made me tell them I was eating goat. They told me the word for beef was chivo, and it's baka. So every night for 3 months, I would tell them, yeah, I had chivo last night, and so they all thought that was funny as hell.
But you never actually ate it.
I've never eaten goat. No, birria is what they call it.
Do you ever have goat milk or goat cheese?
Goat cheese, yeah.
Wasn't that made from goat's milk?
It is. I've had goat's cheese, but it wasn't, it was already milk. I mean, it was already cheese.
It's pretty good, right?
Goat cheese? Yeah. Sure. It's good.
It's funny when you think about things, like we eat things. I'll eat everything except for beets. I can't stand beets. It's the one thing I won't eat. Wow. Everything else I'll eat. But when you reverse engineer it and you think back where it comes from, that's when you can mindfuck yourself and say, I don't want to eat that.
Well, any kind of dairy product. I mean, anytime you drink just regular cow's milk, you could and you can get a picture of yourself sucking at the teat of a cow. So yeah, with goat's milk, it's the same thing.
The visual's enough to kill it for you.
We're the only animals on the planet that eat dairy products from other species, right? No dogs are suckling up to goats. No cats are suckling up to elephants or anything like that.
Not on purpose anyway. Maybe for survival, if man forces them to do it.
Well, maybe once until they get stepped on. So,
but no crazy other scary flights. You made it back okay? No worries.
The flight back was this is incredible. So this was the regular airplane. This is the new route for Hawaiian from Maui directly to Long Beach. There were exactly 10 people on that flight, and 5 of them were Hawaiian airline employees.
Coming home, you mean?
Coming back. So Debbie had got us first class seats to come back. We didn't go out first class. And there was like 4 of us in first class. Well, there were the 4 of us in first class. And then there were a couple other people. Then there was one person I saw on the other side of the little curtain, and then all of the Hawaiian airline personnel that were flying for free were flying in the back. So it was the lightest flight I've ever been on. I mean, it was just nuts. And here's the reason, right? This route only started 2 days before our flight. So nobody really knew about it. So they said, within a few days or something, or a week, it's going to fill up, because that's going to be a popular route. There was no direct flight from Maui to Long Beach Airport. So this new thing for them is good for us.
It's the new thing for all the airlines, trying to figure it out. We've talked a lot about Hawaii, how it's been one of the most severely affected places because they were on complete lockdown. You couldn't even get there, I think, until October. And then a lot of the airlines have yet to resume full schedules, not just there, but around the world you're hearing these stories. So that it's this weird kind of cat and mouse game to figure out. It's the field of dreams scenario. If we build it, they will come. So do you put the routes together first, hoping that people will get on the plane, or do you wait for flights to be oversold and then you book around, you backfill it that way? So it'll be interesting to see. So
right. Apparently, according to the couple of people we talked to, Hawaiian Airlines, there are no plans to ever have a direct flight from Maui into John Wayne. It's not economical for them to have to take off, because of the noise restrictions. They have to use so much fuel to get the plane off the ground on takeoff that it just kills the profitability. So they're just saying, hey, we're flying into Long Beach and that's it. That's pretty convenient, and that's great little airport.
And what they're really telling you is we burn so much fuel on takeoff that we might not make it all the way to our destination.
Well, as long as you don't have to turn around and come back. That was not fun.
But no blinking lights this time? You got out okay?
Nope. It was a very, very nice flight, full meal and, actual metal utensils and, all that kind of stuff. So one thing that they didn't have that I did miss was, because we did this last year, we flew back first class. And they did give us a pretty nice sized bowl of macadamia nuts, which did not happen this trip. And that's because they're not serving any kind of food that isn't packaged. So,
so they're doing their part, making sure that everyone's wearing their mask, and they don't do the meal service at all, I think, in the economy section. So you got to bring your own food and everything else, and trying to figure out your way to survive these long flights. But here you were in Hawaii for 2 weeks. So we talked last time about Texas removing the mask mandate. What's your perception of now being on 2 different islands? Is COVID over there, or what?
Is it over there? Sounds like a
over there, Rover.
Yeah, like a World War II song. Well, first off, let me say, now that you bring it up, that last week or whenever we did the last podcast, I think I might have spoken disparagingly of people from Texas. And
not you.
When I talk about,
you would
Texas,
never say anything bad about people from the South.
There are a lot of great people from Texas. It's just it's just the Republican Party in Texas. So people are great. I said something along the lines of, I don't know anybody from Texas other than Jason. That's not true. A very dear and close relative of ours reminded me that she's from Texas. So that was kind of a mistake. So my apologies for that. Lots of great people in Texas. Just, so having said that, what's going on in Hawaii? Is it over? I don't think so. They have, kept it pretty low, right? Watched a lot of we watch a lot of local news when we're there.
That's always fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We're on Maui most of the time, so most of the news is about Oahu. But this time we did spend a week on Oahu, so we watched quite a bit of that news. And all the local newscasts have updates like ours do about COVID and stuff. And they've got like 400 and some change in deaths. They're averaging about 30 or 35 cases a day, something like that. So the numbers are starkly different, than they are when you hear from California or something. I don't think it's over there. There have been some changes, right? Within the last few weeks, because their case counts are so low, restaurants have opened up. And so one of the things that was good on this vacation was, this is the first, other than one time here in California back in October when they had opened up
the false start reopening.
The false start reopening, 25%. Hadn't been inside a restaurant, to eat in quite a while. So every restaurant that we went to here pretty much was open for inside seating. So they're running at 50% occupancy in the restaurants. So it felt safe, wasn't really close to anybody else. And they're pretty good about watching it, but as soon as you walk into a restaurant there, you just take off your mask. That's the end of that. And on the plane, nobody said anything about it one way or the other. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of mask wearing. We're glad to be on the other side of that. I don't plan to,
that's the one thing for when you stay home, you work from home, and for basically a year, that when you spend 2 weeks traveling away from your home, you're right. That's a lot of mask wearing. It wears on you.
It does. And so glad that that's over, because, I'll run over to the store once in a while, and that's all I really intend to do until this is over. I have some training stuff. I'm going to go on site for a few different things. But it won't be extensive. And, here in California, basically, if you're not in, I don't know what the official things are that we're supposed to be doing, but here I don't put a mask on until I go into a place of business, right? So
you can't even keep up with it anymore. Who knows? Yeah. I heard we changed color tiers or something again this weekend. I didn't even know where we were, what color we changed into. I gave up. I mean, basically, I gave up in January. I said, this is so last year. Fuck this. You know me.
This is so 2020.
If I was ever going to give it any kind of credence that it was a thing, I gave that up in January. I'm done with it.
Well, it's good to be back where I mean, at least I'm used to what's going on. Or at least I haven't really checked anything, so I don't know. I think though that I might possibly be able to get the vaccine, right? So
yeah, I think is
that what we think, that our industry is in the loop now, food and ag?
Well, I don't know. It's I think we mentioned this maybe on the last podcast or so, but things always change rapidly here in California. And I think first we were, like most of the country, it was age-based. Well, let me back up. It was essential workers. It was mostly medical. And then I think police and fire. And then it went to age. But I think it was managed by the counties. And then there were stories about LA County that had shortages, remember, because most of the vaccines up until very recently were a 2-dose injection, and then LA ran out of enough to do the second dose. They suspended taking first applications. And so I really don't even know where we are now. What is this, middle of March? I'm not sure what's doing. I'm hearing that, I guess the only thing I can say is more and more people that I know that are younger and in other industries are getting appointments. And so it seems like it's starting to gain some momentum. And I am hearing that it sounds like people are trying to get an opportunity to maybe sign up in 2 or 3 different places, and maybe one that's more convenient, closer to their home, and then they pick the one that works out best if one gets canceled or whatever. So, but I don't know the system behind it. I don't know, what's driving it. I tried to sign up. What was that? myturn.org, I think. A couple of weeks ago. I think it was still in February, and just based on my birth date, it really didn't let me go any further. So,
any questions about occupation or?
I don't remember. I don't think it let me get that far at that time, and I could be wrong. And I know there's another website, so it's not just
Othina or something like that. Something like that. So you can find information on that one at the California Health Department websites, which will be a little bit. My turn is a national sign up thing, and so I think I'm going to try I think it's called Othina. I haven't looked at it for a while, because I think maybe food and ag workers are eligible now. So
yeah,
I know people in the supermarket industry that are getting appointments and getting vaccines.
Well, and that came with other news like we talked about last week, where the Biden administration is saying the goal is to get everybody who wants to get vaccinated by, what was it, May 1, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
so it should be available, right? But everybody that wants it. So that's right around the corner. So I'm not too worried about it.
But it is. I don't fully understand the management of it. So I mean, again, with Hawaii, my mom lives in Hawaii, and I know that I want to say in the last week or two, they were age-based, and it was 75 or older. Just in the last, I want to say 2 weeks, they lowered it to 70.
65, I heard.
Is it 65?
Yeah, I think so.
So if that is news, that's news within a few days, because I just talked to my mom last week, and it was 70, and she's not quite 70. And she has underlying health conditions. So
she should apply. I mean, you should talk to her, and I don't know how close she's watching it, but I'm pretty sure that I kept hearing 65, that there was a change and it was going to be to 65, because I remember thinking, hey, I'm not quite going to make that cut, so thanks a lot.
Well, and even then, that's island to island, because she's on the Big Island, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's so hard to keep track of it. But
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I will say this, because it's political and it's been politicized like everything else, and as is the nature of our podcast. But people in my kind of outer orbit, everybody that I know is saying they're going to get it, and even those that maybe fall on my side of the political spectrum. So no conspiracy theorists. There is one. My brother, the last time I talked to him, he said he wasn't going to get it. I don't know if he thinks they're going to inject whatever, the bot into your brain and control you.
Microchip.
The microchip. What is the conspiracy? Is that is it a microchip, or they just think it's new and it's not developed? What is the fear? I don't, I'm not hearing.
And no offense to some other close relatives that I know. Well, here's the thing. The only person I've talked to recently that says they don't want to get it is because they just feel like they're pretty young, all things considered, and they just feel like, hey, he wants to wait till all the older people have a chance. So because he just feels like if he takes it, because he's got connection, right?
So he'd be taking it from somebody who needs it.
That's how he feels, and so because of that, I think he's not in any big rush, and so. And I don't think he's all about the virus to begin with. But he's younger, like I say. So I'm sure he's going to take it when the supply is wide open. So other than that, I don't know anybody that's just anti-vax. So I have zero patience for anti-vaxxers.
As we've established.
Yeah. So whatever. I mean, I don't care if you get it or you don't get it unless you're related to me or some friend of mine or something. The only downside to not getting it is the more people that get it, the sooner we can get back to normal, sooner we hit those numbers that make herd immunity something that makes sense. So in that respect, but whatever, people are selfish and they do what they do.
Well, what's interesting is everyone becomes an expert at any given topic, and there are people that I know that are not anti-vaccines in general, with other vaccines in life, until it came to this one. And now, of course, they're anti-vaxxers. And a lot of the shit that I hear, they're just repeating, the talking points from those who don't want to do it and government control and all that, which, hey, I'm right there with them. But what I have always said is if it gives you your freedoms back, and I'm not looking to break the law, although, I think at some point it's inevitable that I will, but and we know you will.
breaking the law.
But it's going to come a time, even just to get on a plane or go to a hotel conference or whatever, that you're going to have to show that you have this thing. And, it's not unlike vaccines that you're required to have to travel to foreign countries. So whatever, let's just do it.
Yeah, I think that I just, I agree with all of that 100%. I don't understand. I don't understand. So real anti-vaxxers, people that just don't want any vaccines. They don't want to vaccinate. They don't want their measles vaccines for their kids. They want to put all the
like these really weird holistic people who are all natural. And, I get that. I get the desire to want to be that way, but that shit doesn't work.
Selfish.
Well, I mean, it's also, is it selfish or is it like, are you denying yourself pleasure? Like if you have sore, muscles, if you're achy, do you take Advil?
I take aspirin.
Whatever, you take something. And we know you're not going to take any alcohol, but you'll take something. And I'm not saying it's good to have an Advil or an aspirin habit, just to pop that shit every day. But if you're sore and you need it, take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the thing about vaccines is. It's like it is some weird combination of phobias, political hocus pocus, and selfish nonsense.
Is it that people can't get to the truth?
I am trying to bait any anti-vaxxer that's to contact me and explain to me how I'm off base there. So,
well,
I don't know of any.
Are you saying off base because you're referring to it as selfish?
Anything I said about it.
Well, I'll debate you. I mean,
that it's stupid, that it's selfish, that it's wrong-headed. I mean, look, anti-vax is just the stupidest opinion ever. I mean, and it's long before COVID.
Right. Yeah. There is a movement of the anti-vaxxers, and it's
we've wiped out some of the most serious diseases known to mankind through vaccinations. And there's none, no, I don't know how many ways to say zero.
If you're an anti-vaxxer and then you get sick, you get a disease, you get something that it could be, prevented or treated with a vaccine, and then you find yourself in need of medical care, should you be denied of medical care because you...
You said that before.
I mean, don't you think? It's like drug users. We should legalize drug use. It's a victimless crime. If you want to take drugs, take drugs.
I think if I had a kid, for instance, and I was in some sending my kid to some podunk school district someplace, and in that school district, there's some anti-vaxxer who doesn't vaccinate their kid, and my kid gets measles or something from that kid, I think they should be fucking prosecuted.
But how would you get the measles if your kid had the vaccine?
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's that's a good question. I mean, you caught me a little off guard there, but the thing
is that what the anti-vaxxers are relying on? That, hey, we understand we're in the minority, and the rest of you are getting vaccines, so therefore you're not in any harm because you've gotten it, and therefore you're protected from us.
Right. And like remember, too, no vaccines are 100%, and so the reason why vaccines work is that a certain percentage of the people involved in any group get the vaccine. So, somewhere around 80-90% of all kids that go to school are vaccinated. There's a small handful of them that don't get it because they have some legitimate medical issue. And so they're protected because everybody else is vaccinated. So here's the thing, though. If enough people stop getting vaccinations for, say, measles, then it starts showing up, even if the vast majority of the population is vaccinated. And that's why I say that anti-vaxxers of all stripes and breeds are selfish, because they're putting everybody else at risk because of their stupid nonsense. And here's the thing. I started to say this. There is no evidence that vaccinations cause autism. That is more nonsensical.
Is that the main talking point? That it causes autism?
That's the main thing. Yeah, that's the main right-wing conspiracy nonsense about vaccines, that it causes autism. That simply is not the case.
That's actually a good topic. We should get an expert to chime in on that. And I don't necessarily disagree with you, but why is there more autism? I mean, there was never autism when I was in school. I mean, certainly not when you were in school. What's up? Why is there so much autism?
I think that because people stopped using the word retard, so that's it. And we thought it went away, but it actually never did.
So it was always the retarded kids are now just autistic.
Well, I think that I don't think they know the reason, right? I mean, there's always the chance that when you see a rise in something like that, that's not a contagious disease, that's more of a condition. There can be a lot of factors that are hard to pinpoint. It can be environmental. It can be simply reporting, right? There can be the same amount of autism that there's always been, but it gets diagnosed and reported more frequently, more accurately now than in the past. And my feeling is that's the case, that there's no more autism now than there ever was. It's just instead of being classified as slow or uncooperative or behaviorally, challenged.
Dull. I like dull.
Nice. Dull. Yeah.
But I think, there's probably more
special bus and the helmet, all of that, right? It's
the short bus.
The short bus.
There's probably more autism now because there's just more people. And there's more. The classroom sizes are bigger. There's more kids in a classroom than there was before the scamdemic. But I think you're right. I don't know that there is any evidence. That's why I'm saying we should get somebody who knows what they're talking about to hear their opinion as to why. What does a vaccine have to do with making people autistic?
Right, exactly. There's zero evidence for that. I think you got a better chance that prenatal vitamins are causing an increase in autism than look at something that didn't used to happen that happens now. We've had vaccines for 100 years, right? They're not new. And especially for the diseases that vaccines have pretty much eliminated, right? The really, polio, measles, whooping cough.
But what would does anybody cite Darwin here? Is any of this Darwinism like, let's just not take the vaccine and the weak among us are going to die because we're genetically, we're weak, and so that's just nature? Anybody making that argument? Should I make that argument?
No, we shouldn't. Whenever you do make that argument, you shouldn't make it. I think that every time I run into some nitwit on the road or something that, doesn't seem to know how to drive, I'm like, wow, I wish you had been taken out by Darwinism.
Well, that's the thing is, there's so many opinions now, and everyone is so fucking sensitive about what everybody says, and you have to respect everyone's opinion. I guess something like a vaccine. You just said, 100 years. I don't know how long we've had vaccines or we've been injecting people globally anyway. But it was one of those things where it really wasn't disputed, right? You were sick. There was known sicknesses. How long did people live 100 years ago? What was the life expectancy? 50 maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, so, and the people that got polio, for instance, almost all kids, almost always devastating. It really rubs me the wrong way that these stupid anti-vaxxers, now that those diseases have been virtually wiped out, right? now they want to, we're not taking the vaccine because we think it, we have, even though there's no proof, we think it causes autism, or we don't know, or whatever. But they weren't alive, and I wasn't either particularly, but they weren't, for the most part. These are not 70-year-old parents that are worried about vaccines. These are young parents that,
it's the Google age, right? It's the age of information where they've read too much. Scare tactics.
They should get some fucking information then, right? Because the ravages of those diseases, especially polio, right, just outweigh any off chance that of any side effect, anything like that. I mean, the idea that you would promote something for your own selfish, stupid, short-sighted reasons that has cured our population of one of the most devastating childhood diseases you can have just makes me mental.
Are you in favor of big tech censorship of the so these new age parents can't find this information on Google and spread it?
I don't think so. I don't think the answer to that is yes.
But it is, like I was saying, I don't know when the tide shifted, but you would think that there was. Well, this kind of speaks to what I always say, is that there used to be the big issues in this country that we didn't agree on, and now it seems to be every fucking thing we don't agree on. But something like a vaccine that keeps people alive used to be just something that you did because it's available, and you didn't want to get the scary illness that would kill you, or you don't want to turn out like Billy down the street because he's got this disease or that disease. So you take what's available. And
where measles, it's not. We're not afraid of somebody not getting vaccinated and then some 6-year-old getting measles and having some spots on his face and a temperature. We're worried about gestational measles, where pregnant people get infected, and their babies are deformed. I mean, these side effects, these are not jokes, man. These are not jokes, right? These are serious things. And I don't know. I just think that it's all based on crap. And you're going to find that, your basic anti-vaxxer is way down the rabbit hole with a whole bunch of stuff that has just turned ugly over the last few years.
It's going to get uglier, I think, when you bring in litigation. I can just see it. And we've talked about this, where I worry about additional litigation with COVID, where workers will ultimately claim that they got COVID at work and they were forced to work because their business was essential, or even as we have these stages of reopenings and people come back that aren't quote unquote vaccinated, that employees will sue the employer. And that's dangerous for a lot of reasons. I mean, I don't know that we can, at this stage of the game, detect or pinpoint how you got the virus. So I can just see litigation there, and I can see litigation happening in places like schools where a school says you have to have the COVID vaccine, or any place, right? Your place of business, or to get on an airplane. It's just going to get ugly. It's going to get uglier before it gets better.
I haven't really been keeping track of this. Have you heard much? I mean, what do we think the story is in business in general? Are they looking to require employees to be vaccinated, or are they just looking to encourage them and staying away from that because they think that might be litigious?
I think that's it. I think that they are walking on eggshells. I don't know. Every place of business is different. And like the airlines, where they're making sure that you wear your mask, they make the announcement, they tell you only take your mask down when you eat or drink. I think there's a combination, and I don't know what the blend is, but there's a combination of a genuine sincerity of, we think these guidelines will protect you, and so therefore we want to require that you do them. And then the other side, which is compliance. They just don't want to get in trouble, and so they have to make those announcements. They have to put the signs on the doors. They have to monitor your behavior so that they can remain open. And so I think what I'm saying is, when you look at what businesses want to do, I think it's both. I think that businesses want to take the pulse of their employees. I don't think most businesses want to come down and drop the hammer immediately and say, hey, you will take this vaccine or you won't work here. That could be a complete disruption in your labor force if you have walkouts or whatever, if you're not prepared to replace your people overnight. I think that they're wise, and what I'm hearing is businesses taking the pulse of their employees first, asking the question, do you want this? Are you undecided? Are you registered? And then you kind of know where your business lies. And then it also depends on your customer base. I mean, do you have are you a grocery store, a big box store? So it's one thing to protect the workers. It's another thing if a lot of your potential traffic is, coming through your front door. So if a business requires it, then you got a problem. I mean, I guess as a capitalist, I support their right to make that declaration. Should they do so? But you got to be prepared for the backlash and the aftermath. So I don't know. I think
it seems to me like it would be beneficial for businesses to try to go down a path that where they encourage their employees to get to a point where they want the vaccine, right? Help make it available. I would say, stopping short of threatening repercussions if you don't get it, and just, because there's value in I mean, it's easier to make people want things than make them do things, right? And so you can't always, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make it drink. But you can, if you're smart, you can make it thirsty so that when it gets to the water, it drinks it. So there's some good old AA speaking.
But the other part is, and I don't know, but when you interview somebody, aren't there HIPAA laws that you can't really dig too deep into someone's medical history? So let's say it's a new applicant and we're a year or two into the future where businesses have kind of established the right to require vaccinations. Can you even, dig into somebody's medical history to find out if they've had it? Or is it the honor system?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer. I know that there's an awful lot of dancing around, HIPAA, just dealing with COVID over the last year, right? When employees get sick or
what you can ask, what you can't, who you can tell.
Right. I don't think anybody's very proficient at it at this moment, right? And I don't think anybody's very clear at it. I mean, unless you're a professional making it your, and it's your real work, right?
And think about that. The only professionals who have been doing it have been on the job for a year, because this is a layer of HR and HIPAA that even the professional HR managers didn't have to deal with before a year ago. So the most experienced person is a year into it. And I think you're right. A lot of dancing around, a lot of adjusting. Nobody wants to be, this is my impression, is that nobody wants to be the absolute authority, because what if they're wrong? They just kind of want to, you hear a lot of case-by-case basis. We'll look at this example, we'll look at that example, and people are afraid to make a policy that potentially could be in, violation of HIPAA or anything else. And that's a slippery slope. We talk about that all the time. You set a precedent that makes sense, that everybody can get behind, but if you apply it to another scenario, it could be pretty bad. And I can see this too, where you want employers digging into your medical history to find out, other things. You haven't had vaccines. Oh, there's a good chance you're a retard. We're not going to hire you.
Nice. Yeah, I think that slippery slope is the word. You always give up your protections when you're afraid of stuff, right? You're afraid after 9/11, we're all afraid of more terrorist attacks and gave away the farm for the Patriot Act and, let them do all kinds of stuff we would never let them do before. It takes 20 years to get somewhere back to where you were before all that stuff started. And you never get all the way back, right? Somewhere along that road, we lost some of the protections we had pre 9/11 for privacy and things. And I think this will be the same kind of story, right? Some of the things that employers probably would not be allowed to inquire about or know about or something like that prior to this are probably going to change. So I think that probably employees come out of that with a little less privacy than they went into it. And
you okay with that?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't see that I have any way to affect it, right? I mean, for me, it doesn't matter. As soon as somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, you have to do this or you have to do that in connection with
like
COVID,"
get out of the pool.
I just quit. I'm done. And so
that's you know, I kind of, for most of, and I'm trying to think of examples where I've been asked for information, and I usually don't have anything to hide, and so therefore I freely give up information, even if it is protected, whether it's medical or something else. I'm usually not afraid to share it or afraid that it will be shared. But if I had something, or if I was afraid that information would be used against me, then I probably would be.
Well, I mean, I think for me personally, as I think about this, I mean, I want to get the vaccine, right? I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I will get that vaccine. I'll update my flu shot when I get a chance. I'm going to check and see if I need a booster on my shingles vaccine. All of those things have side effects that are far worse than anything I've heard about. I mean, the shingles vaccine can really give you a week or so of sore arm and symptoms, right? But
is that one? Are they actually giving you the virus?
I think it's dead virus, actually,
which is a different science than what we have with COVID, as we've established.
Yeah, but that's the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is dead virus, right? And they are typically more robust in the sense of curbing serious results of getting the flu, let's say, right, or getting shingles. They don't
shingles
guarantee.
Is you get that if you've had chicken pox? Is that what it is?
Right, because the chicken pox leaves the virus in your system, and after 40 years or something, that virus changes into the shingles, and
that shit's
not all the time, but
have you known people with shingles?
Yeah,
it's terrible, huh? They're in like tremendous pain.
No, yeah, it's a fucking nightmare. I have like phobia. At 59, my doctor said, "Hey, you can try, check with your pharmacy and see if they'll, your insurance will cover it." And my insurance said, "No, you have to be 60." So
to get the shingles vaccine,
is
that a once in a lifetime thing?
That's what I need to recheck on. My understanding when I got it was that was a one-time immunization, like measles and things, and once you get it, you don't have to redo it. That something's changed, or there's a new version that is a 2-stage vaccine. So I got to check and see if the one I actually got, if I'm good, or I need a booster, or need to redo it or something. I don't care. I will tell you this though: at 59, I said, well, and they go, well, your insurance won't cover it. And I go, well, I don't care, just give it to me. Right. And they go, okay, so that'll be $360. And I'm like, wait. I'm going to be 60 in 5 months. I think I'm just going to go ahead for $400 or $360. So I'm going to chance them.
And you never went back?
I went back after I turned 60.
Oh, so you did get it.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Man.
All right.
I was counting the days, man. And I think the first thing I did after my birthday was, I think, like August 3rd or something. I went, my birthday is July 31st. 2X, and I like electronics, but
why don't you give out your social security number too, for God's sakes?
So sometime in the beginning of August that year I was in there getting it, and it was free. So that's expensive. That was expensive. I mean, if it was $80 or something, I would have just bought it. I would have just paid for it.
But that's not really an argument of the anti-vaxxers, right? You're not hearing that people are complaining about the price. No. If it was free, because the COVID vaccine is free, right?
Yeah, insurance covers it almost all the time.
And COVID will be free? Everyone who's getting both doses of COVID is no charge?
I haven't heard anybody paying for it.
I haven't either. I'm assuming it's free.
No, tests are not free, although I will tell you that. So COVID tests run in the neighborhood of $100 right now, which is absolutely stupid.
It was even more. It was like $150 before.
Mm-hmm. And you can still pay that. I mean, depending if you want to get an at-home one, and you're going to end up on a Zoom meeting with someone from Costco explaining to you how to use that home test, because they got stuff, right? They got costs involved with that. So we had to take 2 tests for this trip, right? One before we left here. That was $90 a piece, and 4 of us. So that was a fair piece of change. Super easy. Drove down to Long Beach Airport in the morning one day, and the 4 of us sat in the car, and they told us what to do. We stuck the swabs up our noses, made our eyeballs itch, and and give it back to him.
And that one you had to pay for?
Yeah, $90 a piece.
But did you not get something that you could submit to your insurance for that? They didn't give you some type of receipt?
I think you can. I mean, I now have a flex plan, so I'm going to get reimbursed from that on my flex medical plan. We did start that this year. So that's the kind of thing that kind of program covers. Would the insurance cover it if we submitted, the bill for that without the flex? I don't know. It's not on their regular coverage. And then in Oahu, we found out that CVS was doing tests for free, and so you go to CVS, you make an appointment. And so to fly to Maui from Oahu, we had to get a test within 72 hours of our flight. So
not every test is equal, right? So the test that you needed for flight is, what is it, like an NR or something?
It's called a PCR
test.
Yeah. And so that was it. So there's a website, for Hawaii,
SafeTravels.com.
Yeah, Safe Travels. And they'll tell you where and what kind of
vaccines. Such a condescending name for a website. Right. Safe Travels. Safe Travels, fucker. Aloha.
Yeah, Aloha. And
that's like break a leg. Break a leg. I don't know. I just find it condescending.
So we go there and it's free. And if you have insurance, they request that you submit your insurance information, and they will try to bill your insurance. And if your insurance doesn't pay for it, then
how hard are they really trying to bill that insurance?
I don't know. I mean, I would think that they're probably, for their part, they're probably trying to recoup as much money as possible. I think that maybe, and I don't know this for a fact, but my guess is that if they don't get paid for the test by someone's insurance, that there's some kind of government compensation that they get to offset, because it's for the good of Hawaii to have inter-island travel, right? And so for CVS to do that, more people are going to do it if it's free, right? It's just, it's just,
and the government can pay for everything because that's what it does now.
Yeah, that's right. And so, it's a pretty democratic place. And so, I would be the capital of Democratica, just so you know.
I know.
Might fight with Los Angeles for that, but so that part was easy. They didn't guarantee. This is for travel, right? And even though the Safe Travels Hawaii website said that the CVS tests were the right ones, CVS itself did not guarantee you get the results back in time to travel.
Exactly.
So, little bit of a crapshoot. So in researching this, we found that their stated average time to get your results back was 24 hours. So we had 72. So
I think all that is improving. The turnaround times for that, now that there's more people doing it, because how long does it take to spit out a negative test? And that's all they, are these tests really being tested? Are they just giving you negatives so you can go travel and we can stimulate the economy? That's what I think. I offered you a negative test. I told you I'd edit it for you.
Right. Thank you. It's pretty extensive. I don't know how it was when you went earlier. Was it last year? Was it October last year?
No, I went over the holidays.
Oh, around Christmas time, huh? So I don't know how it was there, but the process once you get to one of the Hawaiian airports to get off the plane is fairly rigorous, right? You don't just get off the plane and head out for your baggage, right?
Yeah, they make you do another test.
You get off the no,
I did.
No.
I had to
do another test.
What kind of test? The rapid antigen test.
When you got there?
Yes.
No, that's all. They don't do that anymore.
And then if you didn't have to wait for the result, but if you tested positive, they would call you. So I naturally didn't give him my correct phone number.
Yeah, right. Much as if you were in a club. That was the Big Island, so I really don't know what the requirement is there. When I talk about an owner's procedure, I mean, you get off the plane and then you are herded in a group through the airport.
Because that's safe, in a herd of people.
Yeah, I know, to whatever makeshift setup, and you got to go through a little gauntlet of, you got to show your QR code. And I will tell you something that I think is going to stick, that I think we're going to see after COVID goes away. I think, I don't know if you experienced this or not, but the restaurants there are open, but none of them give out menus anymore.
Yeah, you're doing the scanning thing on your phone.
Yep. So for everybody's general knowledge, and because I'm as old as I am, I tend to think
you're pretty tech savvy.
Everybody, well, compared to some, I guess I am. But you take your phone and you bring up your photo app, and you simply get your phone onto that QR code, which is that square, weird-looking thing you see sometimes. It's a little design, and it's a pattern, and you have everybody's phone now has a QR reader built into it, right? You don't have to download one.
Yeah, but what if you're at a place that has no cell service?
Well, you're going to need cell service.
Yeah, that's the problem.
You're going to need something. So, well, I mean, if you're running around.
Did you turn on your COVID tracker on your phone?
I have not.
You've seen it, right?
I never did. Yeah, I know about it. I didn't turn it on there. And there, I never even thought about it. Once I got to Maui, I never thought about it. Yeah, I should turn it on
because they were tracking you. Don't you miss your flip phone? Remember the old days of flip phones?
I don't miss my flip phone.
Maybe it's because I've been watching too much Better Call Saul.
I haven't had a flip phone for quite a while. The last phone I have was the last phone I had before. Let me think here. I had a Nokia phone that's kind of legendary for a long time. It wasn't a flip phone. It didn't flip open.
I know
the
small little tiny brick phone.
Yeah, and they say it's like indestructible. You see it on Instagram and shit all the time now.
It's like a Nokia 9000 or something.
Yeah, they all look the same. I had it for a long time. I carried it in a holster on my belt. And
was that when you were tucking in your shirt?
Yeah, well, you had to, right? If you're carrying a cell phone, you got to tuck in your shirt. If you're carrying something on your belt, So, yeah, that phone, I had that for a long time. But you know what? I think about it. I can't remember what the last phone I had. 10 years ago, there was a tsunami after the Chilean earthquake that hit the Marquesas at 6 feet, was pretty destructive. And we were in Hawaii, and we were on Oahu, and we were staying on a ground floor, beach-facing room at the Royal Hawaiian. And so I got up at 1:30 in the morning to go get a smoke, and security, my favorite people in Hawaii now. Sir, can I help you? It's 1:30. What the hell are you doing? I'm trying to find my way outside so I can get a cigarette. He goes, "Oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess." He goes, "Listen, I'm just going to let you know that at 6 o'clock there's going to be a siren going off here, and we're going to clear all the beach, and so nobody's going to be allowed on the beach, and probably the hotel's going to evacuate." I'm like, great. Yeah.
Did you rush and buy more cigarettes?
Well, no. Yeah, no, I had plenty. So that's it. I never went back to sleep. That's 1:30 in the morning. So then I went back to my room and turned on the effing news because, there's a tsunami coming. I mean, there's no way to know what it's going to be like, right? It was a bad earthquake, and 6 feet on Oahu will wipe Oahu out. So a 6 foot.
Especially Waikiki.
Yeah. I mean, it's at ocean. It's at sea level. So, yeah, so we just, no way I'm going back. Hey, I think I'm just going to go ahead and go back off and wait for this killer tsunami to take me out in my sleep. So that was interesting. And so that was like 10 years ago. That was like 2000 or something.
So what were you saying about your phone, though? That's when you had your Nokia?
I had, I think I might have had some kind of flip phone. I'm not even sure if it was because I still have the Nokia. So I must have
10 years ago would be phone. What? 2000. Let me think about this. Today's 2021.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago would be would you say 2001? I'm pretty sure it's 2011.
2011, 2010 or 11 we were there. And we had a large family contingent that met us on Maui, but Debbie and I were on Oahu for a few days before. And so that we were leaving the next day. So they were evacuating the hotel. They were taking you out of the Royal Hawaiian and putting you in the Sheraton, which is right next door, where you could be 50 floors up, right, and watch the tsunami. But we were checking out. So we just got up and checked out. And they were clearing out the lobby. They had an art gallery in there and all kinds of stuff. And they were hauling that shit out of there as fast as they could. And we just checked out and headed for the airport, because what's going to happen when they have a tsunami, an actual tsunami that goes past a watch and goes to a warning, and they know it's coming, is they're going to close all the state roads at a certain point. So to get to the airport, you have to be able to drive on a state road. So we headed out early, went over, dropped off the car at the rental place, and they were shutting down. They were shutting down and getting their asses out of there, because most of the people that worked in that Honolulu airport location lived on the other side of the island. That's where most people live, right?
Would it be wrong to sell tsunami watching tickets, like for the hotels to sell tickets to the 54th floor so you can get up there and watch the waves coming in? Is that wrong?
Not wrong in my mind. I'm okay with that. So we get there. So it dropped off the car, but it was kind of a rush, and I left my last non-Apple phone in that car. So then I had to let the office know that I had lost my phone in a tsunami. So that sounded a little rich, but really it was just my forgetfulness. So that phone was gone, and the next phone I got when I got home was an iPhone. So so whatever that was, I do believe it was some kind of flip phone. So that was crazy. We took off that day from Oahu, and around 11:40 or something, and around 12 o'clock or something, I think. And we had to board like at 11:30, and the tsunami, the water level was rising in Hilo on the Big Island, which means that the tsunami was
there.
Real. Yeah, the shit was real. But we didn't know how much. But then we had to get on the plane. There's no TV coverage, no further coverage on the plane. So then 50-minute ride over to Maui, and frankly, we didn't know when we did not know what it would be when we landed. It would very possibly we would land in what would now be a third world disaster area, right? Because if that had come in at 6 feet like it did in the Marquesas, there would have been widespread devastation on Maui and every island, actually, especially on that side. So it was very interesting. It ended up coming in a couple of feet, and it wasn't any big deal. And it was interesting. But then we went back the next year, and we went 1 week after the Japanese earthquake. That a week before we got there.
Is that racist to call it a Japanese earthquake?
You know what? The answer is no. That's not.
China virus, Japanese earthquake.
Right. So, no issue there. So, and then there was actually a tsunami watch while we were there this time, right? There was an earthquake. Where the hell was it? Did you hear about
New Zealand?
this?
I think it was.
It was in New Zealand, yeah. So there was a tsunami watch, but nothing came of that. So,
do you think that aliens are laughing at us, like with all of our problems and our climate change and our, do aliens have retarded alien babies? Do you think
these are easy questions this week? Do I think aliens are doing anything in regards to us? Well, if they know anything about us, they're probably laughing.
Do you think aliens get viruses and if they don't take the vaccines, they have retarded alien babies?
Oh Lord. You know what? With great power comes great responsibility. So, we kind of gave you the go ahead on the whole retard thing, but you have great responsibility.
I'm using it irresponsibly, is what you're saying.
You are abusing the retard power.
Well, now that you're back and are you plugged in? Are you following the news? Are you seeing that? Are you surprised that I was going to bring this up to you, that Cuomo hasn't given up the reins yet?
I watched a fair amount of news while I was gone. I tried to stay away from MSNBC or Fox or CNN. I just tried to watch local news. Even then, you get some of it. I've seen the stuff with Cuomo. I don't know what his problem is, but
apparently he's a pederast.
He's a what?
He's a pederast.
I just think that when you're so much of a douche like he was through the whole COVID thing, that that the universe just turns around and smacks the shit out of you on purpose. Like, you're just being too much of a dick.
It's like, this is, I bring it up because this is a perfect example of where I can get lost on both sides. I mean, he sounds really fucking creepy. He sounds guilty as shit. probably is, but you can't get so far hung up on the side where if you make accusations against somebody and the consequence for being accused of whatever this is, sexual assault or whatever, is the same of actually doing it. So you want there to be justice and you want there to be an actual investigation. But on the other hand, I wouldn't even know what it's up to now. 7 people coming forward. It's kind of unlikely that there's not something there. Right, I know. Okay. But it's one of those
Let's find out what really happened with the COVID reporting.
The nursing homes
and stuff, right? For me, since I'm not a woman, that is the more important information that I would like to know about, and I'm just not hearing much about it.
Is that an active investigation?
Oh, I think it is.
Who's the what would you call it?
It's going to be the New York Attorney General.
New York Attorney General.
Yeah. And so, I mean, he's done some of the things he's done are the right things, right? Hey, a full investigation. The governor's office will stay the hell out of it. Letitia Jones or somebody is the investigator, the attorney general that's investigating it. I mean, there's been a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. I mean, governors can be, they can just be terrible, right? I mean,
it's people in power, right? People are attracted to people in power. They either are attracted to it, and I don't mean, physically, although sometimes that's true. And other times they want to be part of it because they think it's going to advance their career. If they're somehow involved in the inner circle, then they'll, have opportunities to move forward.
Right.
Take that for what it's worth. I'm not saying that these people are inviting harassment on themselves, but when people in power in general are the ones that, can abuse it, so it's just crazy. And I don't know how far back this shit goes. I mean, I don't know if he's comparable to the Bill Cosbys of the world. I don't think we've heard that yet, where he's spiking people's drinks and taking advantage of them.
I think a better comparison might be Chris Christie.
What did he do?
Governor. Chris Christie. What did he do? Where were you, dude?
He didn't have any allegations like this, did he?
Not sexual harassment.
He was 500 pounds. Who's nobody would.
Well, I mean, that's. Oh my God! So Chris Christie was, why do you think he's not governor anymore? Right? Because he dropped out, to run for president. But he was. That's just before they wrote him out on a rail for closing the New Jersey.
Yeah, the Bridgegate.
Bridgegate thing. So I mean, what you find is that governors have this kind of autonomous power, and typically, it might be state news, but it's not typically national news. And so for one reason or another, when a governor gets the national spotlight turned on him, or in the case of Cuomo, he turns it on himself, right? Nobody was watching what Cuomo was doing.
Well, he was a star. Everybody thought he could do no wrong.
Right. So he gives himself emergency powers and all this jazz, and then gets caught, lying about the nursing home numbers. And so for me, if that's the case, then, minimally you take away these emergency powers and put somebody.
Did they do that already? Did they take?
Yeah, I think so. So
combine that. And I don't have details in front of me. I don't know if the nursing home stuff is accurate or these sexual assault allegations. But if you put the two together, is it enough? Is it where there's smoke, there's fire? And does he deserve to lose his job over it?
If you're a liar, you deserve to lose your job. I mean,
so he's denying both of these.
Yeah, I think that. Look, the nursing home thing is what it is. That's completely verifiable, and I do believe that there's an attorney general, or maybe it is in fact, what do you call it? Maybe there's an inspector general investigation going on, and so that's going to be what it is. I mean, I don't think there's going to be much, supposition about that. The other thing, always a chance that that's all nonsense or somebody jumping on the boat. But boy, for me, it's like after 3, it's like, one could be false. 2 could be, jump on the boat thing. I'm going to get on this while I can. 3, even then, depending what the story is. But at 7 or 8,
yeah. So is he being sincere? Listen to this.
I never harassed anyone. I never abused anyone. I never assaulted anyone. Now, and I never would. Right?
Does he sound like an honest man?
It's hard for me because
you thought that was Al Pacino.
Well, anybody with a New York accent seems untrustworthy to me. I'm sorry.
Oh, fuck. Now first you take a shit on Texas, and then, Arkansas and Alabama. Now you're going up to the Northeast and taking the shit on New York?
In case the listeners haven't figured this out, I'm very California-centric, so.
And I'm supposed to be the controversial one.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the rest of the country. So that's just, I think everybody knows that. Bore out by the fact that I never go anywhere but Hawaii. So,
well, you're not going to be able to go anywhere now.
I don't
on
care.
A roll.
My life plan is to never go east of Las Vegas. And Debbie had to work in Chicago basically for a month and in a week. And so about 4 weeks into that, her company said, hey, you know what? We've kept you guys here a lot longer than we meant to. So we're going to fly your spouses out and put them up in your hotel that we're already paying for. Real generous of them. And so you can see your spouses. And so I got that call. I was probably at my heaviest weight ever. It's probably, up around 327 or something. And I get this call from Debbie. Hey, honey, the company's going to fly you out. And so we can hang out for a weekend. And I'm like, that's fantastic, hon. I miss you. And I did, but I really didn't want to get on an airplane at 327. I needed 2 seats,
Did you have to buy 2 seats?
No, it was a fucking terrible flight. Not short either. I mean, that's not around the corner. So, I went to Chicago, so that, and it was great to see Debbie. That was wonderful. We had a great time. Took a little quick drive up into Chicago, then down into Indiana to find some gambling, Vegas style gambling down in Indiana. And then I came back and ate some good food, but then it was just like, that's it. I shot my life plan. I went east of Las Vegas. So
yeah, see, I'm the one who's...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm the one who talks about splitting up the country because it's the right thing to do, but you're really doing it in your own way by taking a shit out on every state that's not California. So you're right there with me.
Yeah. So, not a big. So New York. I mean, this is a place that Debbie wants me to go, and I seriously have never really wanted to go. I mean, I'm not going to predict the future because once we get to the other side of retirement, who knows what I'll do.
I told somebody over the weekend that there was one state in particular that I would never want to go to, but I'm not going to say it now because okay. I don't want to be like you and alienate our listeners and take a shit on. Yeah.
Well, I love the listeners in all these states that I should talk. I just don't care for their states.
You've run out of care.
It is a big swath of the country, so apparently all of the Northeast, all of the South, all of Texas. Yeah, I'm limiting my travel abilities, but I'm not sure my fame as a podcaster is going to really affect that in the future.
Well, I don't know. You're giving out your birthday and all your private information. We already established that you were gone and your house got broken into, and people are watching you.
Good news. Yeah, good news. I actually left did I tell you this?
Yeah, the garage story.
I left my garage door open for a full day. That's not the first thing. So,
well, yeah.
Did I give out the address? Because I know people want to come by and see the place.
We are publishing your IP address so that they'll be able to track you that way. The hackers.
Fantastic.
Are you following this Tucker Carlson story? Because I'm not trying to bait you. I'm not really, but he said something about the military, and it came across as anti-military, which, again, just kind of perusing the headlines would seem the opposite of his normal approach, and that he was then attacked by the leftist group, which maybe included military personnel. Are you following that story?
No, but I'm on my other screen. I'm slowly cruising through internet things here.
He made the headlines, I think, for that, and I don't know if he was talking shit about women in the military or specifically pregnant women in the military. I think he made a comparison to the Chinese military, how they are, getting stronger and we're getting weaker. And again, this is at least, I think, what the attacks on the left are saying, and that now they had some military campaign and officers in uniform talking shit on Tucker Carlson. I mean, where does it end? It's just the mudslinging is nonstop.
And, well, I mean, in Tucker Carlson's case, don't you think that that whatever he gets, he deserves? I mean, the guy's a douche. So,
well, I thought you were going to say, and I'm not trying to bait you into this one, and I didn't pull any clips of him, but he is a public figure, and he has a TV show. So, yeah, I think anytime you make a comment as a public figure, you are inviting criticism, and I would be in favor of that. But I think his complaint about it was that there was people in the military, like actual officers, and I'm not sure if they put together a video or if it was some audio clip or something, that they were, talking shit on Tucker Carlson to the point. Here's how I know about this. Your buddy in Texas, Ted Cruz, he's back on the offensive, and he wrote a letter to Congress saying that he wants a full investigation, and he's calling the head of, I don't know, the Marines or whoever to come in and testify and answer questions why the military would allow uniformed officers to make a statement on behalf of a response to something Tucker Carlson said, when the military is supposed to be nonpartisan and they shouldn't get involved in politics, and yet here they are. And so that's the extent that I know about it, and that it got to the point where your favorite senator from Texas is now calling for an investigation. So,
who's my favorite senator from
Ted
Texas?
Cruz.
Oh yeah, I see Ted Cruz here. No, that's Ted Lieu. What the hell? Okay. Tucker Carlson, is the military more concerned with wokeness than winning the next war?
Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Is
I like
that
the way
the
you
gist
said
of it? Wow. I was not aware. I heard a blurb. I think the day we were leaving, maybe the morning, because we were in the room a while. I had the news on, and I remember hearing something about Tucker Carlson being in the shit. But that was about it. So I don't know any of the details. What I can see here is that, so it's something about, is it something about women in the military?
That's what, I didn't get the whole story. It's either women in the military or pregnant women in the military. I don't even think it was as controversial as transgender. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know the details, and I don't even know what he was saying other than, China is better than us and their military is stronger than us. Maybe it's more masculine were his accusations. I don't even know, but I mean, it's...
Well, for my sister, who's pretty far right on all this stuff, she told me that Tucker Carlson is her favorite. Oh, no. Sorry, that's Ted Cruz. That's her favorite.
Favorite senator?
Hold on a second.
But I mean, in general, I've told you this before, I think Tucker Carlson... he can get in the weeds too as far as partisan politics. Other times I think he does a good job at calling out hypocrisy, but I got to dig into this article because I don't know, you say something like that, it's like, man, where are we going with this?
The guy from This Week Tonight or something, Last Week Tonight, John Oliver.
This Week Yesterday?
Yeah.
This time last year?
Evidently, he's calling the Tucker Carlson show a vessel for white supremacy.
Yeah, and that's the shit that I hate.
Not the first time I've heard that either about Tucker Carlson.
All these fucking labels are just ridiculous, and everyone's so quick to cast everybody into these buckets of anything they don't like. I just can't stand it.
Well, I guess in the vein of full disclosure, I think Tucker Carlson is a white supremacist idiot. So, I'm probably going to believe any horseshit that they say about him and then wait for somebody to disprove it. So, yeah, it's kind of guilty until proven innocent.
Which is
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, and that's I'm not aware of anything that he's done, and I'm not necessarily a Tucker Carlson fan in the sense that I follow every move of his career. I'm not aware of anything he's done that would classify him as a racist, other than being a white guy in 2021. So you'll have to enlighten me.
Well, I don't know. I'll have to find out. I don't really have any reason. I don't really have any basis.
You just don't like him.
I just don't like him.
Should he be canceled?
I've never been able to listen to him for more than 5 minutes without wanting to throw up a little in my mouth over something he said. So it's pretty good. And I have tried multiple times. I mean, there's no way for me to prove that, but I keep turning Tucker because I keep hearing that, hey, this guy, unlike some of the people on Fox, thinks things through and blah, 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 and has some good points sometimes. And yeah, he's only occasionally off base. Well, when he is, it appears to be, a wowzer. So,
but should he be canceled over statements like this? Is the woke media and the woke left going to cancel him?
Well, he's on Channel 11. I mean, he's on Fox News, so it won't be the woke media because that's not the woke media.
No, but will he be?
That's the far right
pressured to be canceled.
Well, I mean, I think it depends how far look. Don't think that Fox News is any. If you're concerned about news outlets, canceling people when they don't toe the line for that network, Fox is no different. I mean, they've canceled. They have got rid of more people that have stepped out of their very small, well-defined outline of what they're supposed to say than anybody else. There's so many people that have been kicked off Fox News, typically for not being right enough. That I can't even remember all their names, but
they've been booting
Bill Riley, Megyn Kelly.
No, he got booted he had sexual harassment allegations. That was his deal.
That's outside of their deal. They canceled him for that.
No, I know. That's not being right enough.
He's on Newsmax, so that's even more. That's far more right wing than.
Well, you know me. I'm just not in favor of people being canceled, especially in this day and age. If you don't like people, don't listen to them. Don't subscribe to what they're selling. Don't buy. But don't be canceled. I mean, that's like one of my guys, Drew Brees, quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, he announced this weekend that he retired, and it was kind of expected after 20 seasons. He dangled the carrot last year that he might retire, although he was under contract till next year, but he officially announced his retirement. But he was in jeopardy of almost being canceled earlier in the year, and I think we might have talked about it on one of the podcasts.
Sexual, or what was it?
No, remember he made a statement about it was about the flag, the national anthem, and kneeling. And I think he basically said something to the effect of he doesn't support anybody disrespecting the flag or something like that. And it was either at the very beginning of the football season or maybe a couple of weeks in. And he took a lot of backlash. And it was like, I'm very surprised in this cancel culture environment that he kept his job. I mean, he had to do a lot of apologizing. And,
did he puss out and take it all back and cry?
Yeah. I think all of that. Yeah, I think
cry to the media that he was so sorry.
All of that. Yeah, exactly. And it's all bullshit because people made it into something that it wasn't. And you and I talked about this. In fact, I think the real issue is people like him and the statement that he made. The mistake was that they always viewed the kneeling on the national anthem as a and again we talked about this as a flag issue, as a patriotic issue. God, that's the word I was hunting for, and that's the comment that he made. So as soon as you separate those two things, in his mind, one thing didn't connect to the other. But he really missed the whole point, and the whole point of the conversation, which is that they're not separable. And so he made a comment that was ill-informed, and so his whole line of thinking was just wrong because of that. And so they were calling for his head, and so he had to get a whole education and then apologize. And it's like, fuck, man, it's just nobody's immune to this shit, and it makes me crazy. Where do you draw the line? Should we cancel the Pope?
And here's what I think. Yeah, here's what I think is ridiculous. Any sports people, anybody taking sports people and their opinions about politics serious is just too ridiculous for me. I mean,
I agree with that.
People in sports are the most inconsequential political people on the planet, as are most entertainers in general. So
let me ask you a question.
Here's what I heard. Matthew McConaughey is thinking about running for King of Texas, governor of Texas.
He would probably get elected.
Yeah, so I
seen that guy's abs?
I hate him. I hate Matthew McConaughey. Sick of him. I mean, just he was everywhere, and he's there's been a few things that he's been good in, some real serious drama stuff like on Netflix or whatever it was. But then, commercials and nonsense and powder puff movies, rom-coms and shit like that.
Yeah, but do you hate him enough to where you think he's ineligible to be elected? I mean, do you think he's not qualified to serve?
I think that he's an actor. I don't have a clue what that has to do with being governor.
Does it matter? We've exhausted all of the conversations about electability and qualifications. Is he not qualified?
I think that he is. I think that he is extremely vain, and which is fine. I'm constantly checking my hair in the mirror, but
look at you all slick back today.
This is it. This is the new look. We're on the accelerated path now as I enter the golden years. But he. I think that his acting career, is going to change, or he sees that it's going to change, and he talks about this as a second act or something. And I don't know, and I don't care. I mean, I would not think that Texas would elect an actor, but I didn't think California would elect Ronald Reagan
or Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Actor. Yeah, both. I mean, here's the thing: I thought you had to be a shitty actor to go into politics, not a good actor. I mean, Matthew McConaughey, as much as I don't like him, is a pretty good actor, but plays a wide range of parts. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronald Reagan were two of the most crappiest actors.
But do you think that people like that and those three names want to get into politics and serve because of their egos? Or is it because they really want to serve and they think they can make a difference? Because clearly in those three examples, they didn't need the money.
I think they got people blowing smoke up their ass about how their name recognition, almost ensures them, a good chance of winning. Not that chance couldn't be screwed up by saying something stupid on the campaign trail, but it is so much name recognition. And another thing that we can thank Cheeto Voldemort for is just making name recognition one of the only things that matter. It doesn't matter.
But people are idiots. It works.
Yeah, so
it's like it goes all the way back to high school. It's the popularity contest in high school when you're voting for, school president to class clown. It's like, oh, I know that guy. I'll put his name down.
Here's what I saw today. Speaking of Cheeto Voldemort, is that his cash situation is disintegrating rapidly. Did you see any of those reports on the ex-president?
No, enlighten me.
Well, he's got lots of loans coming due. He's got 6 bankruptcies under his belt.
He can manage that. He's used to it.
He can't pay these loans. So he's got a big loan, I think $360 million coming due to Deutsche Bank, which if he doesn't pay it, they're going to confiscate some of his personal Trump business properties and so forth. And so
don't you think that they
worst idea for them?
Right. Don't you think that the best thing for a creditor like that is to somehow get him back up and running where he can make the money to pay them?
Maybe, but it's a pretty ugly situation. So, and I'm happy about it.
I did read a bunch of stories about how the Trump brand has lost whatever in value, and all the way down to the Ivanka and Jared and what their worth is and their income. A lot of it's tied to these hotels. I don't know how they're structured, but
here's my recommendation for Ivanka. Playboy.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Is Playboy still around?
Well, I don't know. Hef's dead, so I've lost track of it. Oh, that's so funny. I just don't. I don't know, man. I don't know. I see so many things about, like, there's a guy that comes out on social media that talks about he went to high school with Jared Kushner. What a douche he was in high school. How he cheated.
None of that surprises me.
Yeah. How he cheated on stuff. And oh my God. So but not much really. And I haven't heard anything attributed to Cheeto himself. So as far as statements or anything like that, I saw some quick clip that maybe he said, what was it, that Ivanka was going to run for Senate or something like that.
He's saying that, though. She's not, right?
I think that sounds right to me. I didn't.
I think their whole strategy is to let the dust settle. There's not been. It seems like an eternity because we went from
every day.
Yes, well, not just every day, multiple times a day of constant just. And again, I even said, you asked me at one point before the election. You said, I get the impression that you are wanting a Trump victory over a Biden victory. And I said, well, in general, I don't want Democrats to win because look how they're going to fuck things up like they do in California. I don't want that to happen nationally. But no, I'm certainly not a Trump fan. But when you compare the two, fuck, that's really two bad choices. But even me, I look now over the last month and a half, 2 months, whatever it's been, it is quieter. Part of it is because Joe's in the basement most of the day, trying to keep him alive. But
it's not true.
But the other part is it is nice just to have somebody who's focused on governing and not tweeting and causing problems. And certainly Trump, he loved that. He loved controversy. He loved stirring the pot just for the sake of being controversial. And I don't miss that.
Right. And, I mean, if I was a Republican and or whatever you have to be to have supported him, I would be very angry with the 4 years of
your life that you'll never get back.
Yeah, well, I'm already sorry about that. 4 years of possible legislative progress on the conservative agenda that could have been made and wasn't. The only single solitary significant piece of legislation was the tax cut. And I
But remember though, sorry to cut you off, but remember I think we established this, but Trump was not the conservative pick. He was not the Republican Party. Granted, he ultimately became the nominee and elected, but he wasn't originally. I don't think the Republicans ever looked at him as I don't think they looked at his presidency and his legacy as their platform. They all got behind it, don't get me wrong. Certainly as the second half of his first term kind of turned the corner, but I don't think they thought he was their guy. And I think the legislative agenda that ultimately got done, or in this case didn't get done, I think it would have been a lot different if there was another pick.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. I mean, I was really worried about what would happen legislatively. I never cared about Trump one way or the other. I don't think I had any conception of how bad a president he was going to be, just how incompetent, how dangerous, how fucked up.
Well, it went from bad to worse. I mean, that was in short order.
Yeah, so much more. I mean, I can hear myself telling people before the election, look, if he wins, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal if Hillary wins. Presidents are not that consequential, and then, wow, was I wrong about the damage that a single presidency could do. And so I think we all know that now, so it's not even worth rehashing. And again, good news that he was so busy shooting himself in the foot and, pissing people off and stuff that, he never managed to get any legislative agenda going. And he was no good at it anyway. I mean, he was no good at working with the legislature.
Well, I don't think
that's a problem if you're president.
Yeah, he didn't have a plan. I think maybe the tax rate, which by the way, there's news I think just this week and today that's the next thing on Biden's radar, at least trying to get the corporate tax rate increased. But all that stuff, that was maybe the one thing that Trump really had his eye on. I don't personally think he gave a shit about the healthcare deal, which the Republicans always hung their hat on repeal and replace. Mm-hmm. I don't think Trump personally gave a shit about that. He certainly didn't seem to put any effort into it. So
I'm going to give conservatives or Republicans some credit. Every conservative or Republican that is anti-Obamacare or whatever version of it still exists or whatever last dregs of it still, they're not all. Some of them just don't think it's the right way, and I'm okay with that. That's okay, and I would expect those people to come up with a replacement plan. if all you're doing is saying, repeal and replace, and you don't have the replacement ready, then you're disingenuous about it. That's not someone who really thinks it's wrong. So there certainly are people like you. I know you've never been a fan of Obamacare, and because of your association with business and the real world ramifications of how changing the national healthcare system affects business, especially small business, it's all legitimate, right? It's not just, but for Trump, he never gave a shit about that. Repeal and replace was just something to say. He doesn't. The reason why I know that is because in order for someone to care about healthcare, you have to give a shit about people to some degree, and he doesn't. I think he listened to you.
He was listening to you, and he took a page out of your book, and he ran out of care.
He ran out of care, and he certainly was not listening to me. But had he listened to me, yeah, I think he would recognize that. I mean, he just doesn't give a shit about people. And I think, to be honest with you, in retrospect, after all the jibber jabber I've gone through over the life of this podcast, it really doesn't come down to much more than that. He was the worst president of all time because he doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself or anything. He doesn't even care.
Don't use that as the criteria.
I mean, there's so many other criteria, but
pick any other one, because to say he's the only president that doesn't give a shit about anyone but himself, I don't know if that's true. If we look back,
did I say that? I mean, I think that I don't know. Did I say that? I don't even remember saying that. So it's possible. My short-term memory. So let me just rephrase this. I think what I'm coming to understand is that as much as I spent a lot of time trying to figure out motives and, what was the plan and this and that, there's no plan. He was a shitty president because he doesn't care about people at all. He has zero care, but he has zero empathy for the people of the United States. And I think that is not really the case. I'm sure there are other politicians that are similarly devoid of empathy for Americans in general, and especially Americans of color or lower economic status. They simply don't care because they're racist, or they don't care because they're in a different class and they just have no conception. But I don't think many of them are as devoid of empathy as Donald Trump is. And I think that people did not see that. I mean, I don't think that the people that voted for him the first time or the second time are aware of, they're not convinced that he completely lacks any amount of empathy for actual Americans. And because for some reason they're convinced that he's got their backs.
Yeah, well, that's what you've always said, is that they think that he does care about them. I think you said something more or less, and I don't necessarily disagree if this was your line of thinking, but I don't think he really found out who his audience was until he started to run. In other words, he didn't have the messaging and then the idea of who he was speaking to and that he was going to rally that base. I think as he started to figure it out and saw who was coming to the rallies and responding to some of his rally cries like build the wall, lock her up, as he saw who as he saw who was responding to that, then he kind of engaged further and built his following around that. So I think it was almost an accident.
And here's the sad part about it. I mean, I think the most incredulous part of this is that he does not give a damn about anybody in his base except for the Republican donor class. And then it's just for the money.
And that's on the idiots who support him, because as you and I mean, we follow the news, we talk about this stuff, but there's countless examples that we've talked about that's available for people to read, that he's turned his back on his most trusted advisors, the people in his inner circle. They're either his best friend or they're his enemy. There's examples of people see that.
With friends like Trump, you don't need any actual enemies, right? Your friend selection is, I mean, come on. Roger Stone, the lunatic ex-general, just name them all. Pompeo. I mean, these are the worst fucking people on the planet. And they're his closest friends. Roger Stone, lunatic, right? I mean, I don't even know. Name the rest of them. So,
well, speaking of lunatics, here's one I was starting to ask you a second ago. And canceling people, can we not cancel the Pope yet? And can we not cancel? Did you see this story? How the Pope in the Catholic Church?
The opinions represented here are not those of Manny.
The opinions on the Couch Funeral podcast may represent only one host at any given time.
I don't want to turn the entire Catholic population. You're worried about
There's no Catholics in California. You're safe here. All the Catholics are in Texas and in New York, places that you've already taken a shit on, so you don't need to worry.
Okay, good. All right, then continue. Go ahead, the Pope.
But they're out, and they're talking about that now the Catholic Church cannot bless same-sex marriages. And this was just in the news today, I think. And again, they've been trying to balance and walk the fine line of not saying that they hate people who are in same-sex marriages, but they're saying they can't bless same-sex marriages. I don't even know what that means. Why what does the blessing of the Catholic Church mean? But as I'm understanding this, essentially, if the Pope, who's the leader of the Catholic Church, if the Vatican is making a stance that says, here's what you can and can't do, then that's what they expect for Catholic churches around the world, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I don't follow it very closely. My impression over the last few years, especially and I think this is what Pope Francis,
I think it's Francis
or something like that. That he's a little more liberal and wanted to be more inclusive, and wasn't trying to, was trying, like I think you said it right. You're just trying to walk the line on this issue because it's a tough, divisive issue among Catholics, I think. And I don't think most modern Catholics are as, vehement about homosexuality and their relationships to the church. I mean, there are plenty of homosexual people that identify as Catholics, and for them, it's got to be a quandary. And I don't honestly know how they go about justifying that in their mind. I mean, so. And I know homosexual people personally that are really very right wing, and I don't understand that because every
life is difficult for them under right wing policies a lot of times.
Yeah, every chance that conservatives and Republicans get to fuck over homosexuals, they take with glee.
Well, it's like your gardener, right, who voted for Trump. Everybody has that thing that is important to them.
Well, for him, he's a Catholic, and he's a one-issue voter. I mean, he's got it. I haven't talked to him about it yet because I was trying to give him a break on letting it heal. But 4 years, and he voted against his entire ethnicity as far as their best interest on this single issue, and he didn't do shit. Now, my guess is that he thinks that the influx of Trump, backed Supreme Court justices will eventually overturn Roe versus Wade. I'm not at all sure about that. Right?
Are you? And we've spent a lot of time getting into very heated discussions about the Supreme Court. Do you have a different feeling about some of the early decisions and things that they've talked about so far? Are you a little bit more at ease? We had 3 justices appointed under Trump, all of which were touted in the news to be worse than the next. But what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think it's awesome that Merrick Garland is now the Attorney General. So way more power than any of them. But if I was a Republican,
I don't think so. Not with a lifetime.
If I was a Republican politician, I would not be happy about having Merrick Garland now in a position to, come after me criminally. But that's a different story. These 3 justices, I think Gorsuch is, I don't think he's that far. The one I hate, of course, is the beer drinking piece of shit. Can't think of his name now. Kavanaugh. I hate him.
He's number 2.
Just thought he was a complete. I mean, he's the worst pick for Supreme Court I've ever seen. And I think the jury has to be out on the new one because there hasn't been a whole lot of significant decisions made. But I think in the long run, she'll definitely come down on the conservative side. When we get to votes on big issues where you're going to see, politically aligned justices vote together, all three of them are going to be on the side you think they're going to be.
So is that a long-winded answer of saying no, that you're not at any more at ease?
I'm not overly worried about it. To be honest with you, I mean, for a couple of reasons, right? I'm more concerned about Roe versus Wade is not something that's on my mind all the time.
Nor is it theirs.
Huh?
Nor is it theirs in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and I don't think that. I'm sure all three of those, those justices probably are against abortion. I mean, I think they've stated so, but that doesn't predict how it's going to go.
No, it doesn't.
And what's his name? John
Roberts.
Yeah, he's turned out to be, decent as a Supreme Court justice, not always following party line. He's certainly more conservative than he is progressive, but I'm more interested in my biggest fear about this is, okay, a couple things just to try to get my point out here. I think that there's a very large constituency that wants to see Roe versus Wade, or forget that specific law. They just want to see abortion legal. They don't want that changed.
Illegal, you mean?
Legal. They want to see abortion legal, right? There are far more people in this country that think that abortion should be the decision between a woman
Isn't it
and
legal
her doctor.
now?
It is. And what I'm saying is that there are far more people that want it to stay like that. They want it to just remain legal. And so I don't think that there is a large popular movement to overturn Roe versus Wade or affect anything.
Well, that was my point to you way back when, is that even if a crazy Supreme Court ultimately overturns something like that, I don't think the people would let it happen.
Yeah, the danger regarding abortion rights for me is that individual state governments are in the process of going crazy, enacting state laws with draconian state laws to limit access to abortion that will need to go to the Supreme Court. And then that's where there's potential, I think, to see this Supreme Court weighted as heavily as it is on the conservative side to make decisions that will erode access to legal abortions, and that I think is a problem. As far as Roe versus Wade, I don't see it on the agenda.
So the jury's still out. You're neutral on it.
Well, here's the thing. No, I'm not neutral.
Neutral in your thinking as far as is it better justices? Or worse? Yeah.
Well, I mean it's worse. But my bigger concern are civil rights cases that come before the Supreme Court in the future, while these justices are there, and there's such a heavy conservative majority on the court that doesn't represent the people of the United States. That doesn't, Well, let me ask you another question,
and to tie it in with this Pope conversation, not the same issue as abortion, but what do you think it says in 2021 when the Catholic Church takes a position that they won't bless same-sex marriages? And I say that because a large portion of the United States is still very religious. I don't know, what religion specifically, but I think that a very large portion of this country is still religious. So when you have an influential figure and the figurehead of the Catholic Church make a comment like that, how do you think it influences thought in the U.S. and a place like the Supreme Court in decision-making?
How do I think that the opinions of the Pope, the current Pope, and the Catholic Church,
and this opinion in particular?
Well, I mean,
is it dangerous?
It's dangerous for homosexuals. I mean, their rights are affected by that, right? I mean, look, I know a lot of homosexual people that are married, right? And that status can change in a heartbeat if somehow legislative right-wing evangelical Christian horseshit affects the way states or the United States legislate regarding same-sex marriage and so forth, that could be horrible for them, right?
Yeah, and basically this would, is same-sex marriage legal in every state in the U.S.?
It's now legal over the entire United States.
And you say now because it wasn't always that way. People forget, by the way, that I think because you mentioned Pope Francis being more on the progressive side, I'm pretty certain that Obama, even in the first few years of his presidency, was not in favor of same-sex marriage. I'm pretty sure that's true, and he was one of the guys that came around and became an advocate for it. And California obviously is a state that was on the front side of that, and I don't think anything that would be done in the Catholic Church would preclude people from getting married and legally married. But I guess what, they couldn't get married in a Catholic church?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not Catholic, but the way I understand it, this thing where the Pope says you can't have your union of marriage is supposed to be blessed by the church if you're Catholic. Right?
Have you ever been to a Catholic wedding? They're long.
I have.
They're like an hour long. Same with Catholic funerals.
I usually go in a wheelchair. That way I don't have to sit
right by the door and they can wheel you out.
Well, there's a lot of times where you got to stand up or sit down, So, I know a situation, someone who was really close to me that had been divorced 3 times by the time he wanted to get married in the Catholic Church. So
you can't, right? If you're divorced.
Very, very pious. So the wife, very pious and, very, I'm all about being a Catholic. It's very important to me, blah, blah, blah. So they go to a priest and they go, look, he was divorced, but, they never actually consummated it or some horseshit, whatever you got to tell them. He didn't inhale. Yeah, exactly. And, so somehow, and with enough money, you can get a dispensation from the Catholic Church if you've been divorced once, but that's impossible if you've been divorced twice. So you go to the priest, you pay them the money, you make all your donations, you tell them a story about the marriage, but then you don't tell them about the first divorce. You only tell them about the last one. So my question to those people is, and all Catholics, do you think
Jesus knows about it?
Do you think God doesn't know about it? I mean, you're lying to the priest, you're lying to God. The whole thing's nonsense. So I just, I'm sure there are many, and I know we have listeners that are devout Catholics that look, I think that to live with a religious institution that's based in medieval times,
no doubt,
you have to be willing to, skirt
fudge a little bit.
And, I mean, so I just don't know. I don't know the impact of what the Pope says, right? I mean, it certainly has an impact. And although, it's not, I don't think the Catholic Church represents anything close to what it used to represent in the United States.
I don't know.
Certainly in many Latin-based countries and in other places around the world, still very, very strong, right? And so, the Pope does things. This Pope, I don't know that he had a choice, right? If he came out and said, hey, we're just not going to bless same-sex unions. We're just not going to do that. They weren't doing it. It's not like he's changing it. It's not like
no, but that actually surprised me. You said you don't think he would have a choice, and maybe you're right, but it just surprises me with the, political culture, the climate, just where we are with, this day and age. Most of which I poke holes and make fun of, but the reality is that we just need less of trying to convince other people that their way of life is wrong. Everybody should just be free. As you know, I'm a big fan of freedom. 4 freedoms and death, I think, is what we counted.
4 freedoms and death.
Yeah, but why? I mean, why are we taking a position that who can and can't get married? It's just fucking ridiculous to me.
Well, that's what.
How can anybody be so Jesus-y if that's the position of your church? I don't get it.
But just like you can be homosexual and still be religious, and the only way that happens, you can be homosexual and still be Catholic.
What's it going to take for people of religion to finally give that shit up and say, "Oh, I get it. There really is."
You are a long way from that, buddy.
Is it going to take aliens?
Minimally.
I mean, if the aliens can't convince you, then I guess nothing will.
This is happens to be a question that I've thought about and talked about a lot over the years. And like I said before on this podcast and told you, I don't think it would be a good thing for religion to disappear. This is a snap of the fingers. I don't think that would be a good thing. I think that would throw much of the world into chaos, the parts of the world that look for...
You just want more control.
Look to the church.
And uniformity.
That's not true.
I see what you're about.
No. I just think that it's not close at hand. I think that if it disappeared right now, I think that much of the world would be thrown into chaos. They wouldn't.
You aren't willing to try it. See what happens.
I'm not. It's not up to me, dude.
What if we do this?
I don't want it to happen right now because I'm afraid that too much of the world will be thrown into chaos.
Let's apply the COVID strategy. 2 weeks to slow the spread, 2 weeks to cancel religion, and then we'll just keep extending it. And then now we're a year into it. 365 days to slow the spread, 365 days to cancel religion. Let's just see if people can adapt.
Some of the opinions expressed on Couch Funeral are not those of both hosts. Oh my God. Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I've been non-religious since I was in...
since you were selling dope.
Since I was in third grade. Okay. I got up and walked out of Sunday school class because...
That is a great story.
The stories are just ridiculous. And then I went to the librarian in my first grade class and went to the library and asked him why the Bible was not in fiction, was in the nonfiction. That got me a trip to the vice.
See, but you were always thinking, even back then, that's important.
Well, I did not. I just never bought it. I just never did it. My parents never said anything against it or for it one way or the other. They didn't go to church. They sent us to a local Sunday school to, I don't know why exactly, but it was close enough for me to walk home. So I did one Sunday.
That's probably why.
What are you doing here? Yeah, what are you doing here? Sunday school's not over. Yeah, I'm done. I'm not going back. You can't make me. I'm too big. And that was it. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. My sister went the other way. She became real religious when we were kids. And I don't know. I think she still believes or something. And then, our family has a lot of people in it that are pretty religious. And so it's not something you want to talk about a lot because there's no real benefit to come out of talking about people's religion with them, because it's not an issue that follows along logical discussion lines. It's a matter of what people believe, and if you don't believe that,
tradition. It's just tradition, and it's hard for people to break out of that. Yeah. I try to avoid it. We were at the park a couple of weeks ago, just with the kids, and then there was another woman there, and she had her kids, and then my wife and her struck up a conversation, and then they were talking for several minutes, and it was kind of clear that maybe they were going to exchange phone numbers and set up a play date for the kids. And then somehow, and I was kind of off a few feet away watching my kids, and then I hear something about the Catholic Church, and that my wife went to the church when she was younger, and does she still practice? And then I basically it sounds like she's going to get sucked into this cult and be invited to like a Wednesday church group. I just turned around and walked the other way. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm out of here, heading back to the car."
Did she come with you?
A few minutes later, I said, "I heard it was turning into a Jesus thing," and I walked away.
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, it's tough. Fortunately for me and my marriage situation, it's not. I don't press Debbie one way or the other, about what she believes. We certainly don't practice it. I think that, we certainly don't practice any kind of religion. I think that, frankly, anybody's thoughts about God or, is there intelligent design or any of that stuff is just should be up to them. And so I think that you and I I'm sure we're in agreement on this, that no religion should, it's just as I don't try to push my non-belief on other people. I'm not out to make them change their mind or get them to see how wrong they are or anything like that. It should
not unless it has to do with COVID vaccines.
Well, here's the problem with here's the problem I see with organized religion. They, through some kind of interpretation of something in the Bible, they feel that God himself has instructed them to proselytize non-believers, and that's where it gets sticky, because there's no, logically you make the argument that, hey, you really should mind your own business and stop trying to proselytize people. And typically for those religious people that learn who in their orbits are not open to being proselytized, they stop. I mean, it depends if they want to have a relationship with the non-religious people in their family and their circle of friends or whatever, and they stop doing it. And the people that don't, find that they lose those friends and family members, quick. So again, and so on a national basis or on a political basis, whenever religious political beliefs are crossed and they start to try to, and churches start to try to, work in the world of politics, I think there's a lot of problems there. And right off the bat, just let me say that as soon as a church takes any kind of stand on politics, they should lose their tax exempt status. And because then they're just a lobbying arm with a political agenda like any other group, and they don't deserve a tax-free status for their operations. So, because they make money, they collect money, they spend money, and the only reason why they're not paying taxes on it is because they are religious organizations that are not allowed to participate in politics. And
do they, though? Are you aware of any that do
participate in politics?
Yeah,
every church in America. I mean, who do you think do you remember in California, Proposition 8 that made same-sex marriage illegal after it had been legalized? Do you remember all that?
Vaguely. I don't know the number, but yeah.
So it was legalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this Proposition 8, a ballot initiative to make it illegal. Who do you think financed that? Go look it up, and if you care.
You're talking about direct donations from the church?
Who spearheaded that campaign, and who collected the money, and who put money into the anti same-sex marriage part of that campaign? The biggest single donor in that was the Mormon Church. So you have these church organizations that do get involved in politics. And frankly, I mean, look, the Mormon Church just,
go ahead, alienate another group.
It's very.
But your problem is that the tax exempt status of them.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean,
because isn't everybody? Politics is everywhere. Everybody has an opinion about something and spends money towards the issues that are important to them.
Right, but in order to have this tax exempt status, which is huge to the
how else are you going to afford your private
religion.
Jets?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of examples of that, right? And churches make donations and things, and some of it's above board, and some of it's not, and some of it's legal, and some of it's not. And I think that's the only thing, right? I mean, other than that, if churches want to pay taxes, then they can just be.
Nobody wants to pay taxes.
Not taxes. I'm sorry. Taxes. If they don't want their tax exempt, but you can't have it both ways. You can't have your tax exempt status because you're a religious organization, and then participate in religion as an organized group. In politics, yeah. So anyway, that's it. For that, I think that the Pope, this guy seems to be better than most. I don't really follow it that close. I think he he seems to. I mean, again, when I say, hey, if he made some statement about churches not being able to bless same-sex marriages, then I think that's probably a result that's something he had to say. He's not, although he's, the direct conduit to God and all that stuff, he's not, he's not operating in a vacuum, right? He has a religious political backing in the church, and, he needs to maintain that, right? I don't know the whole makeup verbatim, but my impression is there's a large group of people called the Cardinals, which he answers to, basically for these kind of things. And so, I don't know all the inside politics on that, but I mean,
my guess is that people will continue to live their lives and do the things. There's probably more examples of the 3-time divorcees who are trying to get married either in the Catholic Church and then not telling the complete story, or they're getting married and not doing it in the church and not giving a fuck.
Right, exactly. So I don't know how much that crosses. So the Pope, he went to Iran. He went there. That's the first Pope that's gone there.
Iran is how you say it.
It's not
Iran.
It's not Iran. It's Iraq. Sorry, my mistake.
Iraq.
He went to Iraq, not Iran.
Well, I don't know. Wherever the hell he went. Who can keep track of this guy?
Where did he go? Did he go to Iran? Now I'm getting confused because
did he go to Israel?
I think the Ayatollah Khomeini came and met with him, right? So this all happened while
none of these guys are in favor of same-sex marriage.
Yikes!
Well, they're not. All right, my friend, you want to leave it at that for today?
Yeah, sure.
Welcome back.
That's good.
The spirit of Aloha is with you.
Yeah. Does it sound better?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. I feel much more comfortable in this setup.
It looks good on you.
All right.
All right, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.